Hey everybody, it's Teph, and today I'm going to talk about my experience going through sorority rush or sorority recruitment. And I know this is a little bit off topic for a lot of my videos, but really no more so than the tag videos, which are a lot of fun. And I wanted to do this video because this is information I really would have loved to have about 6 years ago when I was going through sorority recruitment. So I want to put it out there for anybody else who it might help, or just for people who are interested. So before I get into my experience, there are a couple of things I want to address. The first one is, what is a sorority? That might seem kind of like a stupid thing for some of you if you're from the US and you're really familiar, but I'm from the US and I only had a really rudimentary understanding of what a sorority was before I joined one, so I'm gonna go ahead and cover it. Sorority, broadly defined, is a social club for women, or typically it's based around social. They have academic sororities and stuff like that as well, but typically when you hear the word sorority, what you think of is a social club for collegiate women. It's not only social, there's definitely a big social aspect, but there's also philanthropy, leadership, sisterhood, academics, stuff like that. And if you guys would be interested in me doing another video about sororities in general, maybe answering some of your questions and stuff like that, leave questions in the comments below, and if I get enough questions, I will do another video about that. So the second thing I want to address before I get started is just kind of a general disclaimer that I was in a sorority for 2 years. I joined in my sophomore year, you'll see what I mean in just a second, and I left at the end of my junior year, so I was there for 2 years. Left the sorority. Technically, I am not an alum. I withdrew before I could graduate, therefore I'm not an alum, just putting that out there. The third thing I want to address, and this is kind of going to start my story, is that I went through recruitment twice. And so to begin my story, I actually started off going to a kind of an alternative college that didn't have a Greek system, didn't have sororities, fraternities, also didn't have grades. My beginning of the story is when I transferred to another school because I didn't really like the other school. I wanted to join a sorority to kind of go outside of my comfort zone, gain new experiences, and just, I don't know, to have a different college experience than I would otherwise, because I'm kind of an introvert and I don't seek out a lot of those social opportunities, and sometimes it's kind of hard for me to make friends. So I wanted to go ahead and change that. When I started to go through recruitment, it was very last minute and I kind of didn't know what I was doing, and I made a couple of mistakes from the get-go. So I'm not going to go into my overall experience with this, but here are what my mistakes were. First off, I let stereotypes kind of rule my brain. I can't think of all of them. The big one I remember being really worried about, and I remember feeling really silly afterwards for being worried about this, I still do. It's like worried that all sorority girls were blondes, and I had no intention of going blonde. So I was just like, oh my god, I'm gonna be the only brunette in the room. I know, silly, right? So there's that one, and then I think just reaching outside of my comfort zone, I just was really worried about that as well, and that kind of like held me back when I was talking to people. The other thing that kind of was against me is that I didn't have a GPA from my previous schools. I mentioned it was an alternative school, did not have grades. So when I went to go apply to Rush as a transfer student, I didn't have a grade to put in there, and I think that counted against me as well, and kind of made a bunch of the sororities being like, oh, we're just not going to deal with that because she's a wild card. I made it through the first 2 days and then did not get invited back for the last night before bid night. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. Except that once I didn't get into a sorority, I then wanted to go do research because I'm an indecisive person, but once I figure out what I want, I will do what I need to get it. And it really infuriated me that there wasn't a lot of information available about sororities, and just kind of partially I just wanted to know what they were about and what it was like to be in them, but then there was also the experiences, and I didn't know exactly like how to get in and stuff like that, how to really put my best foot forward, because again, kind of an introvert, kind of awkward, a little shy. So then going in next year, I had a lot more going for me. I had a GPA, yay! And I was a lot more confident in myself overall, and I'd kind of dispelled a lot of the sorority myths, I guess, or at least some of the stereotypical ones. So I was going in not having those bogging me down. The first days at my school were Go Greek days. There were 3 of them. You had to attend an informational session that kind of goes over what the whole week looks like and the whole process. It gives you a couple of rules about recruitment, but the big thing was just that you couldn't talk to the girls in the sororities outside of recruitment. And then everybody goes down into the school ballroom, which is basically the biggest room my school had. And it was kind of an information fair setting where each of the different chapters had a different table, and they had, I think it was 10 to 15 women there to kind of talk, and they had pictures and stuff like that, and you just go up to them and you talk. And the big thing is making a connection with people. I know that when I was on the other side of recruitment the next year, that was something that they really emphasized, is make a connection with these girls, because you want to see what girls are going to be a good fit in the house. And if you as a member make a connection with the girls, then there's a high probability that other girls in the house are going to make a connection with those girls. So you go around to all the different sororities and you talk to them, and then afterwards, it was kind of an open secret at the time, but I confirmed later that they like rate you and write it down. And I personally never did go Greek days from the sorority point of view. They could only send 15 girls, and I just wasn't on the list because there were like 80 girls in our sorority. So anyway, I don't know what the rating was. I was never part of that, but there's some sort of rating. Like basically it's like writing it down, and then like, would this girl be a good fit or not a good fit, is the impression that I had. And then you also get a little booklet that has general information about each of the sororities. And by general information, I mean like the name of the sorority. They also had information about dues and housing costs, which was really good to know, you know, how much money you're getting yourself into. But the other thing was that those questions about like numbers and stuff like that, you weren't allowed to ask the girls in the sororities. Like the official answer, if you were to ask somebody like how much are dues, is it should be in your book. All the girls in the different sororities were wearing different shirts. They were all color-coded, but the colors were not in the book. So I wrote down all the colors in the book, because at that point I didn't know all the names of the sororities, and I was much more likely to remember them by the color shirt they were wearing than by the name of the sorority. So that was really cool, and that's a little tip if your school does it the same way. I would just write down other impressions that I had, because I was talking to girls from 10 different sororities. That's a lot of people you're talking to. I would try to get kind of girls on their own, as opposed to being like a whole bunch of rushies, you know, girls, PNM I think is what it was, potential new member is what they called us. I didn't want to be one in a crowd. I wanted to do the one-on-one connection, because I work better in small groups anyway, being kind of an introvert. That's how I knew I was going to make my connection. So I first went around to all of the different houses. I think it took 2 nights to get to all of them, because I was, you know, having, you know, conversations at all of them, and I kept track in my little book. And then the 3rd night I kind of went back to the ones that I felt something with. I wasn't going through recruitment really with anybody, and I say kind of with anybody because my roommate was going through recruitment, but she ended up being the roommate from hell. So if anything, it was kind of me trying to stay away from her during recruitment. Unfortunately, we ended up getting put in the same recruitment group, and we got those at the end of the 3rd Go Greek day. We stood around and they called names, and so you had your recruitment group that you kind of stayed with for the rest of recruitment, and your leaders were the Rho Gammas. I know at other schools they call them different things, but at our schools they called them the Rho Gammas. Rho Gammas are sorority women who disassociate themselves for the week, and they're not allowed to tell you what house they're in, and they're kind of there as your recruitment guides. And they do that so they're kind of neutral, and you don't know what house they're in, so you're not swayed. Like if you get along with your Rho Gamma or you don't, or whatever it is, the point is that they're neutral and they're to help you, but not to sway you one direction or the other. We got put in our recruitment groups, and we went to the computer lab. We kind of had to wait in a long line to get in, but at the end of each round, we would go to the computer lab and we basically would rank the sororities from most preferential to least. We'd rank them, saying, you know, which one we wanted in most and least and whatnot. And just because you ranked one last doesn't mean you wouldn't get invited back, but they used that as a kind of a mutual selection thing. So I think how the sororities ranked people had a lot more weight than how the people going through Rush ranked people. But say, like, so there are 10 sororities, say your top 9 picked you, and I think you could only go back to like 7 or 8 the next day, so you would only get that 7 or 8. But say your 2 and 3 didn't like you, but your 10 did, then you would get invited back to there, if that makes any sense. And I don't know for sure, but that's just kind of what I can tell. So I just mentioned we're going back the next day. So the next day you find out which sororities you get invited back to for chapter days. And basically what chapter days are is you go to the house and you get a little tour and you get to talk to the girls. Typically they had like little snacks and stuff like that. And you just, again, you know, talk to people, they'd talk to you, see if you'd be a good fit, a good member. There's a lot of orchestration that goes into that, you know, everything from exactly what rooms you're gonna go see, that's kind of all planned ahead of time. After I did the house tour, there was a time when we would kind of get food and then sit down and chat, and then one of the girls from the sorority would come up and join the conversation, and then one of the girls who gave me the house tour would leave. Excuse me, and then they did it again. And at the time I remember thinking is like, oh, that's nice, I get to meet more girls, like I wonder if this is planned. Oh yes, it's planned and like orchestrated down to like the second. It's crazy. So that's kind of what the chapter days were like, and then they walk you back outside and you go on to however other many invites you got. So I ended up getting only 2 invites back, and that was kind of hard at the time. I was really bummed, and my Rogama was really sweet. She kind of talked to me and stuff like that. One of the houses that invited me back was one of the ones that I'd really liked the previous year that hadn't invited me back for midnight, which had been a huge bummer to me then as well. And I was just like, I really like this house, but they already rejected me once and I'm not sure if I can deal with that. And I don't know, I just needed to rant is really what it was. And she was just really great. And I found out later that that was her sorority. She had absolutely no say in who got in or not. Like, she's disassociated. She's doing it from the, you know, recruitment-y side, the potential new member side. So she like couldn't go to them being like, this person really wants to be in or anything like that. Like, that was it. So that ended up kind of being a little awkward. And then actually my other Rogama ended up being from the sorority that I got into. So that was just a little weird. But anyway, after that, on the second day, you went back to the computer lab and you ranked the sororities again. And then you could get invited up, I want to say it was either 3 or 4 pref night parties. I forget exactly. But, and they call each of the things at the houses specifically parties, even though they're not what you'd think of as like parties, even kind of like the milling around and talking to everyone that you see in recruitment or in like Rush in the movies and stuff like that, where like a whole bunch of girls come into the house, like you talk to whoever you want and stuff like that. Like, that's just not how they did it at my school. I don't know if they do it differently at other schools. That was more akin to the Go Greek days at my school. So anyway, pref night is kind of the last night that the girls come in, and it's really the last chance on both ends to really make a good impression. So when I was going through recruitment, I was only called back to one house for pref night. It was the house that I ended up getting into. That night and kind of the next day were kind of a weird experience for me, because like I was going through recruitment, and it was, you know, I'd been wanting to get into a sorority for a really long time, and so it was like, oh, you know, it might finally happen, and there's all this anticipation. But at the same time, I was kind of distracted because the guy I'd been seeing that summer was coming to visit. It was the only weekend he could do, unfortunately, and I was just like, that's sorority recruitment weekend. Like, I have stuff to do that night, and then I'm gonna be busy a lot of Saturday, and you're gonna be on your own. And he's like, okay, I want to come see you. So I felt like I was a little distracted between that. I just remembered that now. So I went to pref night, and you know, we were invited in, and first we kind of went and sat down, and it was one-on-one with one of the girls. They didn't do any sort of like changing out or anything like that. And I think we had like cupcakes or something, and we had other girls in the sorority serving us. So that was simultaneously fun and a little odd. And so we just chatted. I think it was like 15 minutes or something like that. And I ended up actually being prefed by the girl who ended up being the next president in the sorority. So that was kind of cool. And then we were taken into the other room, and they had a little ceremony where they just talked about how much the sorority meant to them, and they sung a song, and they had a couple of other things. It was really sweet. And then they, you know, led us back outside. And after all of that, after everybody was done with all their pref nights, then we went back to the computer lab one last time and to rank our sororities, but I was only had one, so it was kind of boring for me. It's just like, click, done, see you tomorrow. So then, you know, I went back and I spent time with my boyfriend, and then early the next day I had to be up and out because it was bid day, and that started, I want to say it was like 8 or 9 or something like that, and for a college student, that is early, let me tell you. So for bid day, there was actually, it was the first time there was an actual dress code for the girls going through recruitment. They had like suggestions every night, and you know, like, this is gonna be jeans and a t-shirt night, and this is gonna be business casual, and this is gonna be formal and stuff like that. But for this, what we had to do is we were supposed to wear jeans and a white cami or something over a white cami. And that was because we ended up, well, we already knew we were gonna get shirts for the sorority that we got into. So anyway, we were given a classroom to go meet in. This is the first time we had a classroom, and they kind of sat us all down, and then we started playing the waiting game. And I'm assuming that it was like a time that they had to wait for when they could pass out our bids, which were these little cards in envelopes. And if you could only get one bid. If you got selected by multiple sororities or like asked to join, then it was ranked by your rankings. So theoretically, you got into the sorority. It was like a mutual selection thing. So I only had one sorority that I had gone to prep night for, so I knew which one I was going to get into because the Rogama said like if you didn't get anything they'd call you beforehand, so it wouldn't be like public humiliation or anything. And finally the time came for us to hand out our big cards, and I of course knew which one I was going to get into, so I was just like really excited. And everybody passed out their big cards, and then we were allowed to open them. Like, we weren't allowed to open them at first. And then we went back to the ballroom where they lined us up by sorority, and it might have even been alphabetically after that because my name is very close to the end of the alphabet, and I remember being quite near the end of the line. So anyway, they separated us out by sorority, and then we kind of went up in our groups. And what they ended up doing is we went kind of down the stairs of the student union, and all the different sororities were kind of in a semicircle in front of that. We went and joined our sorority, and they had little goodies for us. They had signs with our names on them, and then they had little goodie bags and tote bags and stuff like that. So they had, in my bag, they had a bid day CD, like mixed CD of different music, which was really awesome. And I forget what else they had, but they had some other goodies in there. Then we went ahead and went back, and we kind of had a bonding day, which was really cool, except that in the back of my head I was like, my boyfriend's hanging around here doing nothing. But he ended up being okay, and I had a lot of fun. We ended up doing like get to know each other games and stuff like that, like go around and say something about yourself, like blah blah blah. And then there were a few other ones that we did, and there was food and just kind of hanging around and chatting, and it was really a lot of fun and a really good introduction to the whole sorority. And then after that, probably at around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, things kind of started breaking up, and there was a football game that evening, and so it was actually really sweet. I don't know if anybody actually ended up taking the girls in the sorority up on this offer, but they were gonna go to the football game as a group, so some of the girls like offered to give up their football tickets to new girls in the sorority so they could go as a group, which was really, really sweet because you have to go like stand in line early to get them and all this sort of thing. And I didn't end up going because my boyfriend was there, but that was a lot of fun and really just a stressing, nervous, crazy experience that was absolutely amazing. That is my recruitment experience, and I hope that you found this video interesting and informative. So don't forget to leave any questions you have about sororities in general or about sorority recruitment in the comments below, and if I get enough questions, I will do another video about this topic. Also, thumbs up this video if you found it helpful, because thumbs ups are kind of awesome, and I will see you in my next video, guys. Bye.